Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Um, just want to hope everyone had a great weekend. Beautiful weather outside. Hopefully, you got out and enjoyed the weather. Um, and a lot of updates going on in the school world. So check out the stream and Google Classroom. We have some information we're sharing with families. Make sure you share that with your parents. All right. Well, let's get to our math lesson for the day. Today is subtracting mixed numbers. And this is a doozy of a lesson when it comes to borrowing, and we're going to talk about that later in the video. But standard uh, fraction work, which we've done in the past couple of videos, applies to this. One, you have to have common denominators when you subtract, especially obviously the fraction part. And two, the big one for this one is that order does matter this time. So we talked about addition, commutative property. You can add in any order you want. This, for subtraction, we said this from day one, order does matter. All right. And when we look at this problem right here off the bat here, when they give you a problem that is, horizontally or left to right laid out, they have to give it to you in the correct order. A worksheet, just a standard question that looks just like this, they have to give it to you in that order. Now, we've said this in previous videos, if it's a word problem, they can put it in a different order trying to get you to to trip you up a little bit. But if they write it this way, like we see right here, left to right, read it left to right, it is already in the proper order. But we're not going to do the problem like that. We're going to set it up vertically like we have done with our other um, fraction lessons, all right? And remember, we're subtracting today. And the standard, like I said, fraction rules apply. We cannot do anything until we have common denominators. So if you want, you can kind of focus on just this section right here. And let's go ahead and find a common denominator. Now, once again, we've done so many of these, you can probably guess right off the bat that 4 is your common denominator, all right? Because if 2 can go into 4, or if that smaller valued denominator can go into the bigger one, that is automatically your lowest common denominator. What do I do here? Well, I got to get 2 to turn into a 4, so 2 times 2. Do whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And up here, 4 easily becomes 4 by just multiplying by 1. I do the same to the bottom as I do to the top, and I get 3/4. Now, once again, I have common denominators. I'm happy, and I go down. 3 minus 2 is 1. Common denominator is 4. Don't forget that you also, remember this is a mixed number. You have this here, 2 minus 1 is 1. All right, and your final answer is 1 and 1/4. Now that was very simple, very easy numbers to work with. Now let's get into the borrowing. Okay, so we're going to try to come along with the same style of numbers here, and this is where it gets tricky. Okay, well, not too tricky, but tricky enough. All right, let's say if we have 5 1/5 minus, we'll put a number like 2 7/10. Okay, and I'm going to keep the denominators simple so we can see that LCD right off the bat. And you'll see 5 and 10, all right, and you should be able to deduce that that common denominator is 10. Okay, now when I look at this, I'm going to say, well, okay, 10 into 10, 1, 7 times 1 is 7. 5 times 2 is 10, and 1 times 2 is 2. And here is where we have a problem. All right, 2 minus 7. And you might say, oh, just put 5/10. No, because if you think about this, if we went back to like first grade, could you do that? My screen is in the way. Let me erase that over here. We wouldn't do this problem. Oh, geez, sorry. 2 minus 7. Now we can't do that. And once again, because this is not addition or multiplication, order does matter. We have to keep them in this order. And this is where we have to borrow. Okay, and it's a little different in fractions and mixed numbers. So we have to borrow, and our borrowing partner is going to be our whole number. In this case, it's the 5. All right. Well, I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. Well, one way you can is bring over your whole number. Now, in the fraction world, a whole number is any times the numerator matches the denominator. So a whole number, or 1, could be represented by 10 over 10, which would work in our case. But it's also 5 over 5 and 1 million over 1 million. That all equals 1 in the fraction world. So this is where it gets tricky. Now, what you would want to bring over from the whole number world to the fraction world is 10 over 10. It makes sense to match your denominators because then you can just combine this to get 12 over 10. Okay? Now when I have 12 over 10, do I have a larger number on top? -7? Yes. Okay? That's one way. So one way is to reduce this by 1, and when you bring it over into the fraction world, turn it into a whole number fraction. Now, it makes sense to match your denominator. I mean, you could bring over 12 over 12, but that wouldn't help you much at all. All right? So that's one way. I'm going to try to get rid of these and go back to what we had before. And the way I like to do it, and I think I've used this before in class, is called the big 1. All right, the big 1. And what I like to do is cross this out, turn it into a 4 like we would normally, and I bring over a big 1. Now, the reason that is there is because it shows me that I did borrow, and it's easy because all you're bringing over for any question from now on is just a big gigantic 1 instead of having to match 10 over 10 or 12 over 12 or 6 over 6. When I do then is you got to get rid of this and you put it into the C method, which is pretty straightforward because you're only multiplying by 1. 10 times 1, 10 plus 2. You're going to get to that same place of 12 over 10. All right. So there's 2 ways to borrow there. Bring over a equivalent fraction with matching common top and bottom, or numerator denominator, or like I just showed you, the big 1 works very simple with all of these. All right. So once I've converted, this is now gone, and I'm left with 12 minus 7, which is 5 over 10. We'll talk about that fraction in just a second, but don't forget, you still have this part, 4 minus 2, which is 2. And because we want, listen, in 5th grade, this would be a totally acceptable answer. As you get in 6th, 7th grade, when it says simplifying, and simplifying is very, very important, you will lose points for not being in simplest terms. But once again, we check this right here. What can go into both top and bottom? And the answer is 5. Okay, and think about this. 5 is half of 10. All right, 5 divided by 5, 1. 10 divided by 5, 2. And then don't forget that we still have that over there. There is your simplest form answer for 2.5. Okay. All right. Well, I threw a lot at you. When practicing, pick your method. Big 1, or do you want to bring over a equivalent fraction? All right. All right. Well, listen. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see everybody shortly in the morning. Bye-bye.